Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Alberta Premier pushes for a new energy corridor, Prime Minister Mark Carney considers the Golden Dome, and a new Made in Canada technology that's changing lives but at a hefty price tag.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Monday, June 9th, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. We begin tonight with our news that's local to the Northwest. The Prince Rupert Port Authority is publicly honoring the 5 companies that were deemed to have given an outstanding performance in their Green Wave program in 2024. The program is one that gives financial incentives to any commercial vessel owners that go out of their way to invest in utilizing environmentally sustainable measures. The companies that are getting recognized right now for their work in the program are BC Ferries, SK Shipping, Yang Ming, Navigator Gas LLC, and Cosco. Participation in the program has grown in the past half-decade, with 2024's number of participants being 33% higher than in 2019. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is pushing for a new energy corridor in Canada, but she hasn't got consensus from everyone. Here's CTV's Jeremy Charon.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith isn't backing off her pitch for a new interprovincial pipeline.
There's some things that we need to do to address some of the objections, but I think that the Team Canada spirit's going to prevail in the end.
Smith has already told the Prime Minister a new pipeline is the top priority for her province. Alberta hasn't named any potential projects yet, but Prairie premiers are pitching an energy corridor between Churchill, Manitoba in the Hudson Bay, Alberta's oil sands, and west to BC's north coast around Prince Rupert. The objection is to the western portion. BC's premier has been clear as recently as last week he's not on board.
Her vision for a North Coast pipeline is many, many years off, and there's no proponent at this point.
Pushback Danielle Smith doesn't appear worried about.
I'm saying that I'm going to convince David Eby of it because I know that this is good for the country. I know that he's on Team Canada, and I can't imagine in the end that if we meet the issues that have been raised by British Columbia, that he would go off Team Canada.
The pipeline's route and buy-in from Indigenous communities are chief among concerns Alberta would have to address with BC, and industry experts say there would likely be other challenges too.
It would make a lot of sense to see that developed for Canada's national interest. Because we've had such a terrible experience developing projects over the last 10 years, there are no private sector proponents for this project.
The Prime Minister has been clear his government wouldn't impose a project on any province that isn't in favor of it, and says a consensus would be required for any project to move forward.
The Northwest Regional Airport's most recent report on their passenger statistics highlighted the ever-increasing number of people that keep passing through the airport. The number of people to make their way through the airport as customers in the month of May was almost 23,000, up by over 2,000 people compared to the month of April. Ever since a slight dip from January to February, the monthly passenger numbers at the airport has jumped by at least 2,000 people in 2 of the last 3 months. Coming up next, the Canadian medical invention that's changing lives. A troubling mistake has a mother speaking out about a BC pharmacy. Here's CTV's Andy Garland.
The bottle was exactly the same.
Sarah Paquin is holding her son Declan's medication.
Regular ADHD medication, it's dextroamphetamine, and he's been on this for a couple of years.
They got his latest prescription refilled last Wednesday at this Shoppers Drug Mart on Guthrie Road in Comox.
It wasn't until the next morning when my husband went to give our son the medication before school that he noticed that they were a different color.
The prescription had a different name on it, and it was for hydromorphone, a powerful painkiller used to treat severe to moderate pain.
I read that it's about 5 to 7 times stronger than the baseline morphine.
Sarah adds Declan was seconds away from taking the powerful opiate.
They were in his hands. He would have had this high dosage of morphine, been sent off to school unknowingly.
Sarah says her husband returned the prescription the same day and told the pharmacists what had happened and were refunded the money. The owners of the shoppers called them yesterday to apologize.
He did also let me know that the employee that I dealt with has been suspended while they do their own internal investigation.
We reached out to Loblaw, who own Shoppers Drug Mart, and in a statement they say, upon review with the store, we have learned this was a case of human error, one that never should have happened. We have controls in place to minimize risks like this, where the patient was handled the wrong prescription bag, and the associate will review these with the employees to avoid a similar situation in the future.
Double, triple, quadruple check every prescription you pick up, whether you've been going to that pharmacy for years, whether it's a medication you've been on for years.
Sarah wants to see stricter policies when picking up prescriptions and has filed a complaint with the College of Pharmacists of BC, who are now in contact with the family.
It's just terrifying. We put our trust in these local professionals to be upholding their end. I think this one was entirely avoidable.
Sarah and her family will now be changing pharmacies, as they say this mistake could have cost them dearly. Andy Garland, CTV News, Comox.
A new kind of technology made right here in Canada is giving kids with disabilities a chance to walk on their own for the first time ever. It's a robotic walker. Here's CTV's Camille Carmali with more.
You see a couple of kangaroos.
This tour of the Toronto Zoo isn't about them or them. It's about them. 9 families, all with kids, who have different disabilities, able to walk up to the animals on their own for the first time ever. Thanks to these robotic walkers, also known as exoskeletons.
The battery pack, and it connects to the robotic legs.
With a computer system and battery pack connected to several motors and a remote control tablet.
Hey buddy, let's go.
Created by a Canadian company, Trexo, based out of Mississauga, Ontario.
There's nothing like this for kids in Canada. It's one of the first devices in the world, in fact.
One of the biggest barriers for families continues to be price, with one of these devices costing a minimum of $40,000. Angela Bowen and her son Roberto have had their robotic walker for 3 years and are still paying it off.
That would be great. Can be funded by the government.
This is my son Mitchell.
Parents like Mark Robert, who also now works for the company, are pushing for government subsidies.
It should be governments that are paying for this for their kids as a way to support them.
Why do you think it's not subsidized yet? Is the technology
because
too new?
It's just too novel, too new.
New, but already selling around 400 of these devices across Canada and now expanding to Hong Kong to several special needs schools.
We actually found it very easy to locate so many target users in one place.
And while the technology continues to advance,
we've been basically perfecting the product over the last 5 years.
It's giving these kids a chance to experience something we might all take for granted.
Just having a little bit of normality in our abnormal world.
One step at a time. Kamel Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
The BC Wildfire Service says it's now dealing with 3 wildfires of note after the Pocket Knife Creek wildfire in the province's northeast merged with another blaze. The service says the size of the fire now covers around 610 square kilometers. The Peace River Regional District says the fire poses an immediate danger to life safety and issued an evacuation order Sunday for the area. The province is currently dealing with around 70 blazes, 2 of which are categorized as wildfires of note. Turning to the weather, the sun rose at 5 a.m. this morning and sets at 10:07 p.m. tonight in the northwest. Tonight on the north coast, expect conditions to be clear with winds from the northwest at 20 kilometers an hour and a low of 8 degrees. Over the next few days on the north coast, expect conditions to be mostly sunny this week with a few clouds and maybe a little rain on Saturday. Temperatures in the 12 to 16 degree range, overnight lows between 7 and 8 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect it to be clear with winds from the south at 20 kilometers an hour, gusting to 40, becoming light near midnight, a low of 7 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect the sunshine to stick around for the rest of the week with temperatures in the high teens and early 20s. Some clouds coming in Saturday, daily lows between 5 and 8 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, it's looking clear with a low of 5 degrees and some frost in low-lying areas. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect sunshine and then maybe a little rain on Friday and Saturday. Temperatures between 17 and 25 degrees. Overnight lows between 4 and 9 degrees. Checking your highways around the Northwest now. On Highway 16, watch for construction. There's a detour in Prince Rupert. There's also bridge maintenance, road sweeping, and utility work going on. On Highway 37, watch for bridge construction and frost heaves. On Highway 37A, there's a section where you need to watch for falling rocks. On the Nisga'a Highway, there's bridge maintenance going on. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, Trump's invitation into the Golden Dome. Food prices have been rising across the board, but you may have noticed one area being hit harder than the others. Here's CTV's Kathy Lee with more.
The meat aisle has become a place of high stakes and tough cuts. For many shoppers across Canada, the sticker shock is hard to swallow.
Beef is just outrageous in price.
From December 2024 to April of this year, StatsCan data shows cuts like strip loin and top sirloin have increased about 34%, rib cuts nearly 12%, and ground beef up 22% year to year. Hamburger prices from Costco posted by a social media influencer reveals in 2021, this brand was $19.99, now $25.99, and a box of the Keg brand burgers was $21.99, now $26.99.
It's getting to the point where you can't even buy hamburger anymore.
Experts say higher transportation and labor costs and shrinking Canadian beef herds are to blame.
The cow herd is smaller across North America because of low prices and high feed prices over the last couple of years. We see in that circumstance farmers ship some of their cows rather than keeping them back to have calves.
Some farmers have just thrown in the towel, looking for greener pastures.
They're cashing in and they're leaving the industry, or they're not reinvesting in their stocks.
Butcher shops also feeling the heat. The high cost of beef slicing into their profits.
It is tough.
Sam Gundy's shop is also offering more affordable cuts for his clients.
They're better flavored and they're tender. And they're about a third less price.
If they're not opting for the cheaper cuts, some are looking at prime cuts as a luxury option and saving them for special occasions.
It's my fiance's birthday today.
While others are keeping beef off the table more often.
Cheaper meats too, like chicken, pork.
Experts say they don't expect the price of beef to stabilize for at least another year. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
New polling suggests the majority of Canadians are against an American proposal to build a missile defense system. CTV's Colton Prail reports.
And as I said, we'll be discussing Canada. They want to hook in.
For $61 billion, Donald Trump says Canada could be protected from incoming missiles under what he calls the Golden Dome. But the Prime Minister says it's our country holding the leverage. Any incoming missiles are likely to fly over Canada's Arctic well before they reach the United States.
We have an ability, if we so choose, to complete the Golden Dome.
Defense experts say he's right, to a point.
There is a degree of feasibility for the United States to do this without Canada, but I don't think it would be quite as good.
Trump's plan is based off Israel's Iron Dome and would be one-half early warning system and one-half interceptor, using ground and space-based defenses to intercept missiles headed for North America. Detecting those missiles with equipment in Canada could save valuable minutes of response time. But new polling suggests most Canadians want no part in the project, with nearly 2/3 preferring that money be spent on the armed forces elsewhere. Canada needs new submarines, fighter jets, frigates, and is short thousands of soldiers.
If Golden Dome is the roof on the house, well, you can invest in the foundation, but if you're not protecting the roof over the house as well, then how good is that foundation going to be?
Defense experts say there are parts of Golden Dome, like radar detection systems on land and in space, that Canada has already committed to funding, and that could go a long way to improving relations in Washington.
This is a pretty easy way to do so and sort of gain concessions for trade or other areas, and also to signal that we are a good partner.
While Canada has previously focused on threat detection over kinetic defense systems, experts say advancements in missile technology from China and Russia mean our country will likely have to incorporate both into its defense strategy.
The G7 meeting will take place this year in the Rocky Mountains, and preparations are underway. CTV's Kathy Lee now with the latest.
Nature's masterpieces carved in stone. The Rocky Mountains, a stunning backdrop for the G7 summit.
It's going to be really good for the area, actually, so that people from around the world can see the beauty that we have here.
A large perimeter is being set up in and around Kananaskis Village, where world leaders will meet, turning the area into a fortress in the forest. Surveillance above and on the ground. RCMP, military, and other officers tasked with protecting the world leaders when they arrive.
We're talking about thousands of security personnel on the ground. Not everyone is going to be in the Kananaskis area. Some will be in Banff, some will be in Calgary. The logistical component of an endeavor such as a G7 is massive.
Around Kananaskis Village, this fencing has been put up and cameras on the top reinforcing the security in the area. From June 10th to the 18th, a controlled access zone will be established, which means the public will not have access to the village and a large area around it. The closure impacting residents and businesses here.
A lot of the local people are ticked off with the closures.
Rick Gwynn lives in Kananaskis and owns Boundary Ranch. This is typically peak season for him.
It's a bit of a letdown, but I mean, it's everybody in the valley's in the same boat. You know, the golf course shut down for a longer period of time.
Over at that golf course, the general manager remains optimistic.
It gives us a chance to nurture the golf courses along for a couple of weeks.
The closure also means multiple trails, day use areas, and campgrounds will be off limits.
It is a little bit of an inconvenience, but it's not for a long time.
Some planning ahead.
So that, we don't have to reschedule.
Visiting the area now before they are temporarily locked out. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Kananaskis Village.
Turning to the markets now, U.S.-China trade talks in London gave many American markets a shot of optimism today, even as they registered few gains. The Canadian dollar gained slightly. The price of gold was up $8.30. Oil rose by 71 cents. Natural gas dropped 15 cents. Aluminum dropped by $41. In Toronto, the TSX dropped 53 points. The Venture Index gained 4 points. In New York, the NASDAQ rose 61 points and the Dow Jones dropped by 1 point. Still ahead, a real-life pinball wizard. The Tsleil-Waututh First Nation says it has reached a tentative deal that could see it buy Hastings Racecourse and Casino. Chief Jen Thomas says the move would push the Tsleil-Waututh close to economic self-determination, but details are still being worked out with the company and the City of Vancouver, which owns the property. Great Canadian Gaming's CEO says the track sits on the First Nations traditional territory and looks forward to working towards finalizing the deal and supporting the First Nation in the ownership transition. President Trump is leaving open the possibility of sending Marines to Los Angeles amid the growing violent protests in the city that has seen at least 3 officers injured and more than 50 people arrested. ABC's Perry Russum is in Washington.
The eruption of protests in Los Angeles boiling over after President Trump deployed National Guard troops, bypassing California Governor Gavin Newsom. It's the first time a president has taken control of a state's National Guard without approval in 60 years. Protesters shutting down this freeway. Apparent flashbangs going off as police work to reopen the road. Several people detained. Fireworks launched toward police.
We had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you.
LA's police chief says most of the protests in the city have been peaceful. He calls the violence he's seeing disgusting.
We are overwhelmed.
The demonstrations first starting after immigration authorities conducted a series of sweeps, arresting more than 100 immigrants in the city last week. Overnight, President Trump calling the demonstrators troublemakers and insurrectionists. California Governor Gavin Newsom on MSNBC.
Donald Trump has created the conditions you see on your TV tonight. He's exacerbated the conditions ever since he announced he was taking over the National Guard. An illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act.
Trump now leaving open the possibility of sending in Marines.
If we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order.
Governor Newsom says he is planning to file a lawsuit today against President Trump for deploying the National Guard, saying the Department of Defense never coordinated with him. Perry Russell, ABC News, Washington.
We leave you tonight with one man's journey towards becoming a world champion. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky.
As Kathy Gagnon looks back on when her son Robert was cast alongside John Travolta as a baby double in Look Who's Talking 2,
Robert's got the nicest smile.
she recalls how the movie's other star, Kirstie Alley, asked her a concerning question.
She asked me if I ever had Robert's hearing tested.
Her boy was interacting with others differently than the other kids on set. But rather than being deaf, Robert was eventually diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum.
So I tried to find out all the information I could. That was the way I coped with it.
And instead of trying to fix a problem, Kathy and her husband were compelled to support their son's unique potential, which led Robert to discover a pinball machine for the first time.
Wow. Is this some really cool, high-tech toy?
It felt good.
It felt adventurous.
An adventure where, after learning how to make the ball go wherever he wanted it to go, Robert was the hero.
The excitement is always fun for me. It makes me feel in the zone.
And Robert's talent transformed the pinball-loving boy
It's kind of like the autism would disappear. He was just so focused on the machine.
into a real-life pinball wizard.
And he would attract people, and he seemed to enjoy it.
Robert proved to be so passionate about pinball and so good at playing it, he started amassing machines and winning tournaments on both sides of the border before entering the World Championships as a contender.
The quality of the best play in the world under a pressure situation from Robert Gagnon.
Oh, it felt amazing. This ball could be worth $10,000 American. This is like a dream.
A dream, after competing against the best pinball players on the planet, that Robert made a reality by winning the Worlds.
It felt really cool, actually, to be called world champion. We got that beautiful trophy.
While Robert continues to win tournaments, be embraced by the pinball community, and earn fans around the globe, what Kathy is most grateful for is that her unique boy has grown up to be a happy man.
And when he smiles, his whole face just lights up. And to see that, I think that's what made me the most proud.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Burnaby.
That's our news for now. Thanks for watching.